once again to College Composition. Today we want to talk about a persuasive essay, a basic argumentative essay. This is the third structure we've looked at so far, and it's probably one of the most important ones that you'll learn in all your academic career. It's an argument that I'm sure you've written in high school and other essays. It's a plain point-by-point argument, but what we want to do is break it down and understand its basic elements, how they work, and how to construct a very good essay or persuasive paper that will convince your audience of whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. So first, before you ever engage in any type of argument, the first question you want to ask yourself is, what do I want to get done? What do I want to happen in the real world? Not what I want someone to think, not what I want someone to believe, because people will tell you they think and believe anything, but their actions will tell you what they really think or believe. So always focus on an action. If you're trying to get a job, what does a person physically have to do to get you to that job? Do they have to put your name in a box, click a radio button, send your resume on to somebody else, and that's the action that you should track? Or any argument that you're writing academically, if you're trying to convince somebody that a certain bill shouldn't be passed in the House and the Senate, well, who gets to decide whether that's passed in the House and Senate? Senators and congressmen, so you'd be trying to get them to vote the way that you want them to vote. So let's start and let's break this down. A basic point-by-point essay, as you can see here, I call it ABC structure. ABC. This just represents the points that back up your thesis statement, the one that you're used to. I'm sure you've written abortion papers, capital punishment papers. Capital punishment should be abolished because ABC. This is no different. But what audience do I use this argument to target? The audience that's on the fence is who you want to target with this. Look at this. I know it doesn't look like a fence, but think about it as a picket on a fence. This circle represents your audience. They're dead center. That means they haven't decided one way or another on this issue. This is really the only audience position that a point-by-point argument will work on. At least as much as humanly possible to be undecided, because as we know, people lean for different reasons. So if we find somebody that's undecided, there are two ways that we can attack this persuasive essay. We can attack it positively or negatively, rewards or punishment. Now, what do you think works most often for all audiences? This is across the world, not just a Western or U.S. thing. Do you think the positive, rewards system works, or the punishment? Well, if you thought the punishment, you're right. Most people respond better to fear than they do reward. And you ask yourself why. Most students in class can figure this out. If you think of all of our societies, every system that we've ever set up, it's based on being punished for things you do wrong, not for being rewarded for things you do right. For example, I'm driving down the interstate, going about 105 miles an hour, swaying in and out of traffic, drinking Crown Royal. Police car comes up to me, I throw the bottle at him. What's going to happen? I'm going to get punished, right? At the very least, if not shot. However, if I go down that interstate every day, follow every law, do everything am I supposed to do, they're not going to mail me a cookie or give me any type of prize. That's why negative works best for this ABC argument or this point-by-point argument that we're going to write now. So let's talk about how we will use this negative or this punishment to persuade our audience. This is the outline of what a persuasive essay would look like. And as we said earlier, the first paragraph and last paragraph will always be the introduction and the conclusion, even if we have more sections. You can have more than 3 points. The ABC, that's just there to give us an idea of how the points will lay out. Few important things to know about this argument. One, your points have to progressively get stronger as you move through this. That means that point C has to be stronger and sway your audience more than point A. Now, it doesn't matter what point you think is stronger. It matters what your audience thinks is the stronger point. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out what order to put these in. Now, we can't just put our opinion in this paper. We can't just say, okay, these are the reasons why something should be done. We have to mention the opposition or the other side. Now, why do you think it's important to always mention the other side in an argument? Well, it gives you credibility. If I tell you that a Mac is the best computer in the world and I've never tried a PC, never tried Linux, or if I say a Droid is the best phone and I've never tried an iPhone or a Windows phone, I don't have too much credibility. If you don't mention the opposition in your paper, you're going to lose a little bit of credibility, even if your audience is in the middle. It's almost like if you see one of those infomercials where you say, hey, buy this phone, you can shave with it, jack up your car, it'll cook eggs, it'll do all these things, too good to be true syndrome. That's the feeling somebody will get if you just don't mention the opposition at all. So how do we mention the opposition in our paragraphs, in our body paragraphs? Well, we do that with an although clause. Now, this is what you put in your rough draft. So the beginning sentence in each one of your points will be although, and that will be whatever the opposition point is. Now, we don't give the opposition a lot of real estate in this paper. We only mention them so that we can rip them to shreds. That's why this is one of the most fun arguments to write. So, although many people believe this is expensive, it's actually very cheap. And the rest of that paragraph would prove why it is very cheap or give evidence as to why it's very cheap. Although many people believe this is wrong, in fact, it's right. So it's really that binary opposition. You're just setting it there so that you can systematically take it down with your paragraph. In your draft, I would always start each one of those paragraphs with although. Now, you can change them as you revise so it doesn't sound redundant, but in a rough draft, it's just fine. So we have our introduction and our conclusion. We have our body paragraphs that get stronger as we go, and we mention our opposition with although clauses at the beginning of each one of those paragraphs. What we have left now is to come up with the thesis formula. Remember, we've come up with formulas for the narrative essay, a few different formulas for the compare-contrast essay. This is a good formula to use for a basic, very simple, persuasive essay for somebody dead center. And that is, I call it the because clause thesis. It's the one that we've all used in the past. Capital punishment should be abolished because A, B, C. And literally it's just whatever your thesis is, because, and then your points that support that. The hardest thing about this sentence is to make it mechanically sound. That means you don't want to say because and then have 3 different complete sentences after that separated by commas. And you don't even want to separate them with semicolons. You want each one of those 3 points to come together in one sentence saying that the thesis, which is capital punishment should be abolished or should not be abolished, that's the most important thing. And in other sessions, we have already looked at ways to make a sentence with the because clause mechanically sound, and we'll look at further ways when we get into some more advanced arguments in some other classes. So to review one more time, a basic persuasive essay. I'm targeting somebody who's on the fence, who hasn't really decided yet. I'm going to use a negative approach. With the negative approach, I'm going although, and then I'm ripping that opposition to shreds by the rest of my paragraph. Although they say one thing, the other is true. My thesis formula is a because clause thesis where I simply mention ABC, the same things that my paragraphs will be with right here. I restate my thesis as we've already talked about, and then finish my conclusion. One thing not to forget is, remember in your introduction, you want to bring your reader in some type of context. With somebody who's dead center, what would be a reason somebody was completely undecided? Well, really, there's only 2. One, they don't know anything about it. So if you know your audience doesn't know a lot about it, you're going to have to give them a lot of context. The other reason somebody might be in the middle is because they just don't care. The issue doesn't affect them. So you're going to have to be more specific with the context you give that audience to show them why they should care to make that decision. I'll see you next time, and I hope this really helps in creating those arguments and those basic persuasive essays, which will be important in all your academic career.